This disc rather actually, is a metal aluminum disc, and it plays with these really fine little tines on there. It's almost like a really fine cheese grater.
This guy is Mr. Fun. Seriously. Raw Copper here, and today we're going to check out the O'Keefe Homestead and Pioneer Village here in the Okanagan Valley of Canada. This is the Okanagan Valley. I was traveling along when I saw a bunch of animals in what appeared to be a historic site. There were old buildings and a rather fancy-looking house. I thought I should turn around and have a look. I'm here at the O'Keefe Historic Site, and it all began in 1886. Let me show you around. This is the O'Keefe House.
I'm Jacob. Over there on the wall is the people who made this place possible, namely, of course, Cornelius OKeefe, right there in the middle. And so, he actually came here in his 24, tried gold panning, didn't quite pan out, but when he came back here a second time, after going to Oregon to buy cattle, he actually met an indigenous woman named Alapetsa. And so she lived at Head Lake Camp, just up the way there, current location of the OKeefe Reserve today, and they were together for about 7 years, and had 2 kids in that time. First of which only lived to about 2 or 3 weeks old and then passed away, but the second one lived to adulthood. And the only connection we have between Cornelius and that side's family, after the time that they separated, was when he paid for his daughter's wedding dowry many years later. And the reason for that is because his third wife, Elizabeth, pictured there on the bottom, actually erased all records of Alapetsa here on the ranch and from existence. And that's actually why we have no photos of her here on the wall, because none actually exist. But after Cornelius decided to leave Alapetsa, for reasons that we don't really too sure on, could be because he wanted to have a white, educated woman as the head of the household, as was the English ideal at the time, but we can't say for certain because we don't have any documents pertaining to it. But after they did separate, he decided to go back to Ontario to find a wife, and he found Marianne. And she's about 30 there, although when she married Cornelius, she would have been about 26, and he would have been about 42. And so she actually came from a very well-educated, very wealthy family, and so she was pretty upset about having to move here when she had to build the log house just across the way there. But she ended up being with Cornelius for 20 years, and had 9 kids in that time. And unfortunately, after the 9th kid, she suffered from a stroke and passed away due to complications with that. At which point, Cornelius decided to go back to Ontario, actually because one of his daughters was getting married. And she was actually getting married to Elizabeth's brother. And that's how they met at her wedding. So Cornelius married Elizabeth when she was 23, and he was 62. So quite a big age gap there. But they ended up having about 6 kids together in their time. So in total, Cornelius had 17 kids, 15 of which lived to adulthood. So Cornelius was, of course, Irish Catholic, and that's why they have a Catholic church on the property. And actually, that was Marianne's idea to build it there. And of course, they put the church right there, so the first thing that people saw as they came around the hill of the highway, being a Catholic church for the Irish Catholic family. And you actually see Marianne's original rosary beads in the upstairs master bedroom when you get up there.
Let's have a quick walk around the O'Keefe Family Mansion. Looks like a pretty nice little estate here. Pretty cozy. The OKeefe Ranch is as old as the country of Canada, having been established in 1867. Cornelius OKeefe was the 7th child of a farmer from County Cork, Ireland, and his French-Canadian wife. He was raised on a family farm in Ontario, Canada. In 1862, having heard of the discovery of gold in British Columbia, he traveled west. After an unsuccessful attempt at gold mining in the Cariboo, he helped construct a portion of the Cariboo Road. Later, he helped to build 115-mile house at Lac La Hache, which served as a stagecoach, wagon depot, and post office. Jacob's gonna play, what is this?
This is La Trador. And so this song here, well, basically this disc rather actually, is a metal aluminum disc, and it plays with these really fine little tines on there. It's almost like a really fine cheese grater, really. And as each one of those little metal tines hits one of these star-shaped gears along this rung here in the middle, that connects to a note on the inside of the machine, just like a little wind-up music box would at home, or play a piano, if you're familiar. And so, one of the unfortunate bits about these devices here is you actually need to bend the disc ever so slightly to make it in line with those gears. As you can see me doing with this center bar here, once I get these little gears in line. And so this machine is very fancy, and that has what's called a moderator right there, which is a slow and speed function. So we usually keep it to fast because the songs are pretty long. And it has this little switch here at the back, which changes the tone of the songs as well. So yeah, I'll give this one a good little crank start. Changes the whole atmosphere a bit, right? And then of course this switch at the back is the tone. And it really changes the sound on that one. But most people prefer it set to the original. And so also every song actually needs to be started and stopped right on this arrow right here. As you'll see me do in a moment. And then you need to actually let it unwind itself by putting it into on, and you can see the little gears turning there to relieve the tension on the inside. And of course, because some of these gears are out of line there, you can tell that somebody didn't turn it off quite properly at one point, but you can't expect perfection. So that's the condition it is in now. And we actually had a guy in from Toronto to fix it about 6 weeks ago. If he could do it, we had a guy in from Britain. So we were very fortunate that this one took.
Eventually, the property turned into an open-range cattle site where thousands of cattle roamed the unfenced ranges of the Okanagan, Thompson, and Caribou regions. In 1866, O'Keefe met Thomas Wood near Kamloops, where Wood had wintered a herd of cattle. The two men went into partnership, first driving the cattle to an area near the Columbia River, and then went overland to the Oregon's Willamette Valley, where they purchased a herd of about 180 cattle. They met Englishman Thomas Greenbow, who also became a partner, and returned with him through Washington Territory and the Okanagan Valley. Arriving at the head of Okanagan Lake in June 1867, the three men each preempted 160 acres of bottomland. O'Keefe and Greenbow remained in partnership, establishing a small general store to serve the native people and a few settlers in the North Okanagan. In 1872, this store became the home of the valley's first post office. O'Keefe served as postmaster until 1912. Sometime after his arrival, O'Keefe had formed a liaison with a native Okanagan woman from the nearby head of the lake band. This relationship not only improved O'Keefe's domestic circumstances, but also established an alliance with the Okanagan tribe. The alliance was to be strained in 1873, however, when O'Keefe filed an additional preemption on land claimed by the Okanagan people, but exempted from the reserve boundaries established in 1865. The disputed land would be granted to the natives after a lengthy negotiation. Let's have a look inside the general store. The general store is a rebuilt structure to give you a feel for life back in the day. So let's look around and step back in time. Where you'll find this woman working behind the counter. And she'll be happy to sell you some candy. Let's have a look around the historic O'Keefe Ranch. O'Keefe's fortunes improved dramatically. By the mid-1890s, the ranch spread across some 12,000 acres with cattle and sheep and large acreages in wheat. But the successful growing of fruit in the Okanagan Valley placed increasing pressure on the large cattle ranchers to sell their lands for settlement. This, along with a slump in the beef market in the late 1890s and the overgrazed pasture lands, ended large-scale ranching in the Okanagan, and O'Keefe was one of the last to sell. An old log house. Having previously subdivided and sold about 3,000 acres, he disposed of most of his remaining holdings in 1907 to the Land and Agricultural Company of Canada. Do you know how the term riding shotgun came into being? Well, it's the guy who was sitting next to the guy driving the wagon who had a shotgun just in case any trouble arose. His wife Mary Ann died in 1899, leaving 63-year-old O'Keefe with 8 surviving children. In 1900, he married Elizabeth Teresa Tierney, and had 3 sons and 3 daughters, the last child born when Cornelius was 76. OKeefe constructed theaters in the region, became a justice of the peace, served as director of the British Columbia Cattle Association and also director of an agricultural society, and was president of the Vernon Jockey Club. He also became involved in politics. He died in May of 1919, but the ranch remained in the family's hands until 1977. And the decision was made to turn this beautiful property into the historic site you see today. Old buildings were restored, some relocated, and by 1967, exactly a century after existence, it was open to the public. I've finally found Mr. Fun. Not kidding. Right there. Mr. Fun. One of these guys, anyway. The only 2 buildings that were originally here were the house itself and the church. The rest were either reconstructed or moved. This is the Shubert House, showing some of the original construction there. The Shubert House is not original to the property, but was moved here in 1989 from a nearby location. The house is fairly unchanged from its original condition. Augustus Shubert II had the house built in 1892 on what was affectionately known as Gumboot Ranch due to the swampy terrain. Back in 1855, his father Augustus married Irish woman Catherine O'Hare, and they moved to St. Paul, Mississippi, before heading to Fort Garry, now known as Winnipeg. In 1862, they traveled across Canada with the Overlanders. Catherine was a hard-working pioneer woman who raised 6 kids, ran several motels, and became the matron of a boarding school. They also have a petting zoo here. What are you yakking about? Ah, you like that, eh? Okay. Try not to make an ass of yourself, eh? So if you'd like to see the OKeefe Ranch just off 97 outside of Vernon. I hope you enjoyed having a look around the historic OKeefe homestead here in the Okanagan Valley of British Columbia, Canada. Don't forget to give me a like on the video, share, and subscribe. Until next time, this is Rockhopper. I'll see ya.